Welcome to this special episode of the Hali Hewa Podcast with your host, Abigael Kima. This podcast brings together key African players in the climate space to simply share their personal experiences as they advocate for climate justice and environmental justice in their unique capacities. And at Hali Hewa Podcast, we are proud to bring you experts from the African continent who have quite a remarkable experience in their different areas. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting three wonderful guests, Caitlin, Dennis, and Clement. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Well,
Thank you for having
great.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
It's lovely to have you on set today. And I'll just invite you to introduce yourselves, starting with Dennis.
Hi, my name is Dennis. I'm a lawyer in Ghana, and I work as a legal and policy consultant at Taylor Crabb, a law firm which is focused on law and development practice, providing consultancy service for international development organizations, Government of Ghana, and supporting civil society organizations in advocacy.
Amazing. And to you, Clement.
Hi, Abigail. Good to be on this podcast. My name is Clement, as you indicated. I also work with Taylor Crabb. So Taylor Crabb is a Ghanaian law firm. And within the law firm, we have a not-for-profit wing known as Taylor Crabb Initiative, where we use our legal backgrounds to support civil society activism and campaigns in the natural resources and environmental sector in Ghana. So this is what we do, and we've been doing this in partnership with ClientEarth, a UK environmental law firm, and we've been working collaboratively with them for the last almost 12 years.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the introduction. And to you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Abigail, for having me here. I'm Caitlin Wale. I currently act as the chair of the Next Generation Development Board at ClientEarth, which I will share more about during the course of this podcast. And in my day job, I am a climate tech venture investor, currently splitting my time between being an entrepreneur in residence in a London-based carbon removal fund and setting up my own vehicle to support sub-Saharan African climate ventures. Really looking forward to this episode. Thank you for having us.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And to Clement, you have quite an impressive background in the law, and I'm just curious to know why the law?
So I think that I've always wanted to read law. My granduncle had a way of influencing us, who was a great jurist. He rose to the Supreme Court of Ghana. So we've all been looking up to him. So growing up, I've wanted to do law. I didn't set out to do natural resources law or environmental law. Actually, that was an accident. So I come back from graduate school, and the law firm I was working with had a task to work on Ghana's forestry laws and draft some laws for the ministry. And no one was interested in forestry because it's not a very interesting area. We're looking for transactions and commercial law and stuff like that. So my senior in chambers just threw the brief to me, and the rest is history. So I met forestry by accident, and I must say that if I see that accident coming again, I will throw myself into it, because it's been a very exciting moment for the past 14 years, trying to work with law, particularly as it relates to natural resources, looking at it from a socio-legal perspective, not looking at it as strictly legal and quoting legal provisions, but seeing how we can use law to influence change in how our resources are managed for the benefit of the larger society. So that's why I fell into this area of law.
Yeah, I would say that's a very beautiful accident because, we all need someone protecting the environment, and it's amazing to have people with a law background, bringing their voice and their expertise to the fight. And to you, Dennis, would you say the same for you? Do you have inspiration from maybe your parents, your grandparents, or was it different for you?
Well, just like Clement, it was never my intention to specialize in natural resources and environmental law. My first desire to read law was when I was in college, and I was involved in human rights work through Amnesty International Student Group on University of Ghana. So I decided to do law to empower myself, to improve how I can effect change in my environment. So when in law school, I decided to take an internship at Clement's law firm. And I realized actually that law can be used for different things beyond what we know law is used for. And like I indicated, the firm had a practice that focused on natural resources and environmental law. And what struck me was, even though it looked like it was boring work and people didn't really were interested in that area of law, it was very, very important for national development in the sense that it was there to support development and planning. And as lawyers who were consulting on natural resources and environmental law, we were actually helping policymakers to anticipate the challenges that could come, and we were helping them design law. And for me, it felt like it was an avenue to provide more impact than mainstream law. So increasingly, I acquired the taste and I had more passion in that area. And now I that's all I do. I even don't like doing courts or transactions. I'm more interested in building civil society capacity and helping policymakers to do good law for national development.
Amazing. And I think that's a very important component where you're actually building capacity of communities and you can see the impact firsthand because of, the trajectory that you help the civil societies to move in terms of advocating for change in the environment and climate space. Caitlin, you have a background in mining, and I am curious to know how you found yourself in the legal domain working on the NextGen strategy for ClientEarth.
Thanks. So my original background is as a civil engineer, and my first career was in the mining sector. And now it's almost come full circle because as a carbon removal venture investor, there's so many innovations that are coming out of the mining sector. And if we are to hit the net zero goals by 2050, the amount of minerals that we're going to need to mine is only going to continue increasing. So I'm really interested at the intersection of innovations and their force for good for helping the climate transition. And how I've got involved with ClientEarth is less on the legal side and more on the advocacy side. So I'm part of a next generation development board. We are 10 individuals from diverse backgrounds bringing our perspective, and my perspective comes from investing in the innovations that are largely in the engineering arena that are trying to move some of these ambitions forward. And the legal system is much more on a macro level, how you can push, huge corporates and governments to act within the bounds of what's healthy from a climate perspective. And then the other side of the spectrum, working with the innovations that are then trying to move forward and act within that.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Of course, Clement, you've already spoken briefly about what you do with Taylor Crab. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But Crab, okay, Taylor Crab. Do you mind sharing more about, what that experience has been like and whether there are any other cases specific to, forestry management, for example, the Atiwa forest that, we would like to know what that experience has been like for you.
So, what we have done with law over the years is to try to demystify it and also use that as a tool for communities and civil society actors to sharpen their advocacy and their campaigns. So we've organized training programs where we help civil society organizations to understand the legal framework, the underlying laws that regulates forest management, natural resources in general, and the avenues for enforcement of these rights. So over the years, we have created a cadre of very active community and civil society actors who understand the basis of law, even though they have not been to law school, but they have managed to use this knowledge in law to influence their campaigns and now ask for law reform. And they make policy proposals. They've contributed to drafts to change the legal framework for the management of natural resources. I mean, one law comes to mind vividly, which is the regulation on legality licensing, the law in country that domesticates the voluntary partnership agreement between Ghana and the EU. Now, civil society was very active in making proposals to government on how to reform the law to ensure that when Ghana trades, they trade in legal timber. That's one. So this capacity of civil society being built over the years has gotten to a point where they're asking, so after the reform, what next? So if the law is reformed and we are not seeing the implementation of the law, what do we do next? So that will bring forth issues of enforcement, using the courts, using other complaint mechanisms, avenues to try and seek enforcement of these laws. So the Etiwa Forest case is one example where you have active community members and civil society organizations understanding that there are different categories of forest, and the law has created those categories, and the law has indicated what can be done in which forest. So if there's a forest that is categorized as a protected area or a global significant biodiversity area, it means that certain activities like mining cannot be done in there. And they have this basic knowledge. Because they have this basic knowledge, if they see any attempts at trying to mine in this forest, then there is advocacy. So they engage the government, made proposals that this cannot be done. Government was like, we are going to also do it, but we'll do it sustainably. Civil society said, no, you will destroy the ecosystem. You will destroy the environments there. So next, they file a case in court and say, no, even though you're a government, you cannot undertake this mining of bauxite within this area in Etiwa. So what we do is to support them. There's a lead advocate who is arguing the case in court. So we support with case building support, helping them to put their briefs together to be able to meet the barrister who is doing the litigation in court. So over the years, we've moved from a place where it's just building capacity to understand the law and use it in their campaigns to a point where now they are even asking for enforcement of the laws, where now communities and civil society actors are knocking on the doors of the courts to have the courts to enforce the laws regulating how we manage our natural resources in Ghana. So that has been a very exciting curve where you are seeing civil society actors who ordinarily will not engage with the law, and they see the law as a barrier even to some of their campaigns. And now they have bought into the usefulness of the law as a tool to help the ends of their campaign. So it's been a very interesting curve, and I can tell you that now government officials, state actors are very wary to even mention the law, because immediately you mention the law, these civil society actors will tell you, show us the law. Where are you quoting that law from? Because we also know the law and we have access to it, because we have printed these laws for them in a compilation, and they carry it to all their meetings, they carry it to their negotiations with government. So it's a very exciting thing to see, as Dennis indicated, real-time impact with what we're doing with civil society.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really inspiring, and because where I sit most of the time, when we are doing our advocacy, our activism, never have I been in a position where I have basic knowledge of the law, and I think that's a very important component that should actually be replicated even in other countries, because I feel like most of the time it stops at action, it stops at matches, because further than that we are unable to take the conversation forward because we don't have the basic knowledge for of law, and we don't know how to engage government, we don't know how to engage negotiators. And I think that's a piece that should really be, we should bring you to Kenya and other African countries so that you can support other young people to, join the movement and have that basic knowledge. And Dennis, I know your work is maybe primarily, or at least you mostly focus on the capacity building for civil society organizations. I just wanted to find out what that experience has been like for you, and what do you think can be done to expand your efforts so that more people or other young people, or even people in the civil society space, can be on board?
Yeah. So just like Clement indicated, I mean, empowering these actors is a first step. And then the next step is for them to actually go into action and to do the change they want to see. My experience with CSO's capacity building has been very fulfilling, and it's very interesting whenever I have to engage these actors in conversations and they actually ask questions my law professors didn't even ask in class, because they actually now appreciate and they are even able to see different perspectives that I usually will overlook as a consultant. On your second question on how we can expand this, to go into action as a civil society actor, you first have to have in mind that often the position is not palatable to state actors and government officials. Often you are trying to advocate for change generally the establishment will not want. So to move further, I think there's a need to create network among civil society actors. This would first help build some synergy, when they are actually trying to push for the change and there's resistance. When you have a lot of actors who have come together, we have communities where they're able to exchange ideas, it will give the synergy to push the change. Secondly, it's going to give the chance for them to collaborate. When they communicate a lot, there's reduction in replication of efforts so that they build on each other's efforts, so that the scarce resources they have, they are able to make the maximum use of it. And the third would be in terms of providing security. When they are pushing positions where politicians are not really in favor of, when there's this group of persons behind you, you are not afraid of for your life. So there's more confidence to actually push for the change you want. And at Taylor Crabb, working with ClientEarth, we have a legal working group where we, in a way, create a community where these actors are able to exchange ideas. Every time we finish our legal training, we have an open floor section where every actor tell us what they are working on the ground. The others also contribute and see whether they can contribute. And, it's a medium to exchange ideas. We have a WhatsApp group. We have an email thread where whenever there's a need to mobilize for action, it's easy. It takes less effort. You just put it on the WhatsApp group. There's a lot of contributions, and we can just release, we can have an issue this morning, by afternoon or evening, we have released a position paper. So I think in addition to the legal training and capacity building, we also have to increase efforts at creating more networks and communities where these actors can exchange ideas and support each other.
Amazing. Thank you for those very insightful comments and steps that we can take to make sure that these efforts are actually amplified. And I'll invite Caitlin now to speak on the Next Generation Climate Leaders Project, which is exciting because I understand the plan is to engage about 1 million young people, especially from the Global South. Caitlin.
Thank you. So as you've heard from Clement and Dennis, the power that the law can have in unifying multiple voices and really making a force for change. And this is what ClientEarth does. And just to touch on the kind of 4 areas that they focus on and some cases within them, I'll touch on that, and then I'll talk about the Next Generation Board. So looking at fighting climate change, there's a landmark victory that ClientEarth has won, which is taking the UK government to court for their flawed net zero strategy. And more recently, they've launched a greenwashing case against the Dutch aviation giant KLM for greenwashing. So that's on fighting climate change, defending nature. We've already heard about the awesome work that ClientEarth have partnered with Taylor Crabb to defend the Atewa rainforests and empowering the communities around their legal rights within that. And there's also more recently been a case that's been launched against Cargill for some of the work that they've been doing with their agri-farming, particularly around soy meal, which is being fed to livestock, and how that's causing deforestation of the Amazon rainforests. Delivering justice. So ClientEarth has trained more than 1,500 judges, including in the Supreme Court in China, on environmental litigation, and also protecting our health. Things like the Clean Air Act in the UK, which is now spreading out across Europe, but also challenging kind of big food giants like Nestle France, Danone, McDonald's France, and other food and retail giants on their use of plastics. So as the Next Generation Board, we are a group, as I mentioned, of diverse individuals ranging from 21 years old to 31 years old from all parts of the world. And we are bringing together our networks and backgrounds and different ways of thinking to see how we can amplify the work that's already being done by ClientEarth and get awareness within the younger generation. And we're defining that as kind of below 35 years old. And within this, we are aiming to get 1 million people signed up. And please, anyone listening to this, sign up on the link that's in the show notes, because we want to get young people who really have a big voice, who can then be, if there's a case that's happening in court and someone supports it, we can get them to sign a petition. Or if someone knows of an event that's happening, they can mention some of this work that's happening. So it's really about amplifying and communicating what's already being done by these awesome lawyers. And I'm based between Cape Town in South Africa and Nairobi in Kenya. And we've got Ramatuli on the Next Generation Board, who's based in Gambia. And together we're thinking about how can we proactively try and get the Global South and Africa represented within this 1 million young people. And so it starts with here and speaking on events like this. So thank you for giving us the platform, and thank you for all the awesome work that you're doing with the law.
Well, thank you so much. Of course, I'll probably be among that 1 million people signing up for that training to make sure that I also, get the training that I need. Now, I don't know if you are all aware, but there's this summit coming up in September, hosted by the African Union and the government of Kenya, which is an inaugural summit. It should have happened back in, I think, 2020 or 2021. But of course, COVID, and then no country had taken it up. And so some of the conversations that I have seen as the thematic area is the issue of critical minerals. And I know you're all working or somehow tied to the mining space. And I'm just curious to know, because when they speak about critical minerals, it's from a place of the world is trying to get to net zero, and conversations around just energy transition are still looking at Africa to be the ones providing these raw minerals. But of course, when we look back in history, there's always been, unsustainability in the sense that communities are left in deplorable situations after the mining has taken place, or either they don't really benefit from, the discovery of mineral in their community, and then it's just exported and it's not used locally, and their lives are not changing anyway. So, Caitlin, I'm curious to know what your feeling is with regards to how this conversation is taking shape, and of course, the fact that we really need to transition to a greener pathway as a globe.
Yeah, I think so. As I kind of alluded to, there's such powerful voice that can be had in particular with the younger generation, as they're aware of their rights. And what we're trying to do with having this access to the next gen kind of information ties is to have people. I was at an event a few weeks ago where someone was in South America, and I was telling them about some of the work that ClientEarth had done in Poland and stopping new coal mines going up. And they were like, oh, do I have the right to speak up about this? And absolutely, yes, you do. And then it's more just about creating that connection point, about understanding what is within your rights. And I think, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, if we're going to hit those net zero targets by 2050, where we need wind turbines, which require critical minerals, and we need electric charging batteries for cars and vehicles, then we're going to need something like 3 times more copper, 20 times more lithium, and 40 times more nickel than what we're able to get today. So we have to all come together and work together to work out how we do this in the best way for the planet, for the people, and actually giving everyone a voice and a platform to understand their rights within that.
Mhm. I love that you mentioned for the planet, for the people, and the fact that we actually need to work together to make sure that happens. And of course, Clement, you have a background in law. I'm curious to know what your take is on that.
So I think that the discussion on how mining is done sustainably is gaining a lot of currency, as opposed to forest and deforestation, where it's received a lot of international involvement by way of trying to set up certification systems and all that. We don't have that kind of traction when it comes to mining. So I think that we need to start putting the same effort, because comparatively, mining is more destructive to the environment than even logging. Because when you remove, you can plant, but mining and how it is done, particularly if it is mining of gold or bauxite, you have to destroy the surface before you dig the earth for the resource. So I think that the discussion should be more on how can we do this sustainably for the benefit of the state, for the benefit of the people and the community, and for the survival of the planet. So I see the planet as the bigger picture, and then you have governments and states trying to raise revenue from these resources, and communities within this subsect who are also to benefit or suffer the negative effect of these mining operations. So what we need to do is to start a discussion where the discussion offers actually options for government, because it becomes a question of revenue. So you say that you need to do this in a sustainable manner, and there are options of doing this that can bring you even more revenue, because from what Caitlin is saying, we are going to need more of these critical minerals as time goes on. So the race to be the country making most out of these resources is going to heighten if we don't start having these broader discussions on how this is done sustainably. We're going to be faced with a very grim scenario. And I think that law reform, sustainable mining discussions should be at the forefront, like the way we have done it for other forest risk commodities like cocoa, soy, and all that. We should have the same kind of momentum for these critical minerals. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. And Dennis, your work is mostly tied to community. And how do you feel about this whole conversation?
Well, yes, I agree. For the transition into a green economy, we are going to really need these critical minerals. However, we also need to make sure that the transition is just like you have indicated. We need to actually look at our frameworks, legal frameworks governing this natural resource. Again, I can speak for Ghana, where in our legal framework, the property or the title in minerals is vested in the president in trust for all Ghanaians. So you find minerals, you find any critical mineral anywhere, it belongs to all Ghanaians, but it's been vested in the president. We need to have a look at where the governance is such that decision-making about whether this mining is happening or not, and the transparency information actually would look at the input of communities that live around these resources. Because when it comes to sharing the cost, they have to pay more of the cost than other Ghanaians. You see, when there's mining going on in communities, access to their farms might be inhibited. Access to potable drinking water becomes inhibited. So they actually take more of the cost than other citizens living elsewhere. So these communities that live with these resources actually are more key, should be key stakeholders in decision making and governing these resources. And information should just not be made available, but it should also be made accessible, where they would actually be able to appreciate what's happening and make critical inputs. So talking about exploring of critical minerals, I think, yes, we have to do that, but we have to be equitable in our exploration. We need to give more access and available information to communities that live with these resources so that we are able to protect their interests and their livelihoods. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Making sure the communities are key stakeholders in the decision making and in the implementation of everything else. And as we wrap up, Dennis, is there a way that the audience can get in touch with you if in case they're interested to be part of the trainings, whether they're in Ghana or any other parts of Africa, so that they can be involved and learn from the kind of work you're doing with civil society organizations and communities?
Well, yes. So you can reach us through our website, through LinkedIn and our social media handles. Our website is www.taylorcrab.com, taylorcrabgh.com. I believe you share a link or you share our website
Yes.
in your credits. Yes.
Yeah.
You can reach us either through our website or through our LinkedIn channel. We'll be happy to collaborate and to do more impactful work within Ghana and within the sub-region.
Yeah, thank you so much. And to Clement, what is your message to the audience that would like to be involved in the legal domain in tackling environmental challenges or climate change?
Yeah, so I mean, COVID has taught us that we can do things in different countries using mediums like Zoom. So currently, most of our legal working group meetings, it's a hybrid form. So I will encourage other Africans who are listening, who are within this area, they will want to join these meetings, just reach out to us so that it becomes an African thing. I mean, it's better when we start meeting like Africans, discussing our issues and coming up with positions that will better our countries instead of doing things individually. So these hybrid meetings, we can make them available so that others can join as well.
Yeah,
I think that what we will do in the future looks very bright, and I think that activism on how to protect the environment will not stop. We are entering into a new phase. There are new minerals, there are new things we're talking about. There's carbon, all those things. So the law is going to play a critical point. So all activists must try and broaden their knowledge, basic understanding of the legal frameworks that regulates their various campaigns. And I'm sure that together we can save the planet.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And to Caitlin, how can young people or, at least from our audience, be involved in the Next Generation Climate Leaders Project? And is there any other way we can support you and the strategy to actually amplify the work that you're doing and to bring more people on board?
Thank you. Clement, I love how you speak about the future being bright, because I really do believe that we all have a role to play in trying to paint that bright future. And I think my call to action would be for everyone, young or old, to sign up on the Next Generation link, which is in the call notes, which takes you on a journey to understand how you can take action within your rights. And whether you're a lawyer, and we've heard some of the awesome ways that the lawyers are actually mobilizing huge amounts of change towards fighting for our climate, but also whether you're an engineer or an artist or a doctor, there's so many ways that you can get involved. So join us, sign up, and we'd love to have you on board for the journey.
Thank you so much. So this segment is just to invite you to speak about anything else you feel you might have left out and really feel the need to speak about it. Anyone can jump in.
I'd just like to say thanks, Abigail. You've done really well in preparation for this and bringing us all in, and really excited to hear the finished product.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Thank you. Thank you again, Abigail. This is a wonderful platform. I think that we can use this increasingly to amplify the work that we do individually, because now the power of social media to mobilize, to get people to align is unmeasurable. So using tools like podcasts to do some of these things, it's very interesting, and we're happy to always chip in and help in any way. Maybe seeing us in Kenya very soon.
Hopefully, that would be amazing.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. And this is just the beginning, of course. And I don't say thank you to Caitlin for putting us in touch, because I feel like there's so much more. This is just, we've only done surface level, and there's so much more that we can do together. So thank you for putting us in touch. Dennis?
Yes, I would also like to thank you again for giving us your platform. My message to your audience would be that everybody has a role to play, irrespective of how big or small your effort is. The work requires to be done to move the world to a sustainable future. It requires everyone. If you are not an advocate, you can actually be an implementer in any small way. Every little bit counts. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was lovely.